Georgia O'Keeffe was born in Sun Prairie, Wisconsin in 1887. As a child, Georgia didn't like school, but she loved her private art lessons. After high school, O'Keeffe studied art at the Art Institute of Chicago, but got very sick after her first year and had to quit. Afterwards, she taught art, took many classes on her own until she had enough art to have a private exhibition. She quickly developed a style that she became known for, following her own creative heart rather than trying to please others. Her large-scale flowers, trees, and leaves that use distortion were inspired by her summer vacations to New Mexico. So let's take a moment and get started creating our own enlarged or distorted giant flower. You can begin drawing out your own circle on your paper, or you can use one of the tracers around the room to begin this project. Once you've done that, extend the petal lines all the way off to the edge of the paper. Make them go all the way to the edge. They should be large, 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 filling up the whole page. Lastly, before you get your paints, take a moment and put your name on the back. Now, once you've done that, let's get started on painting. You'll notice that my paint palette has a lot of warm colors. I've grabbed some yellow, orange, and red, and some white. Now, when I started out painting my project, I began with yellow on my flower petals. You don't have to start with yellow. You might want to start with one of the other colors, but the point that I'm trying to make here is look at how I just grabbed some orange paint and started mixing the two colors before the paint dries. So instead of painting the whole flower yellow, do your mixing while the paint is still wet. You'll also notice that when I am grabbing paint onto my brush, I'm never washing out the brush. Instead, I'm just grabbing some more paint onto that yellow paintbrush and then applying it right onto the paint and then letting those colors mix and blend right onto the paper. So I just showed you my brush, how it had yellow paint still left over with a little bit of orange on there. And then I'm just swiping it onto the paper and then letting it mix. If it looks like it's got too much orange, well then just go get back and get more yellow and just swipe it onto the page instead of mixing your colors and getting one solid flat color. No, instead, let your colors mix onto the page. So again, I'm starting out with my yellow as my base color. While it's still wet, I'm grabbing a little bit of that orange paint and starting on the outside edges of the flower. Right there on the edge is where my pencil line was. And then with my leftover paint, starting from the center and swiping it out to the outside so that it's starting to mix with some of that yellow paint. Leave some of those streak lines in there. Don't let it be such a flat, solid color, but instead, let it swipe together. Let's go ahead and I just like that pop of color, and I like the way that, like more dimension into my project. You don't have to do this. If you like the way it is, then leave it the way that it is. But I just wanted to add in another warm color with a little bit of with a little bit of white, a little bit of red, and then letting that pink color mix into my page too. So like red can be used as well as that pink color. Again, it just makes it flower look like it's more three-dimensional and not such a flat color. Let those colors mix and blend onto the page and swipe that paintbrush off to the edge so that it has that three-dimensional look to it. It's not so flat. Now grabbing a new paintbrush with my cold colors, my turquoise, purple, and white, I'm doing the same thing, only now filling in the background space with those cold colors. There's my turquoise, swipes of white into it, and then I'm also going to add in a little bit of purple into that cold background color. Again, I do this while all the paint is still wet. I never wash out my paintbrush, but instead, when I started into the cold colors, I grabbed a second paintbrush, warm colors for my flower, cold colors for my background, and letting those cold colors mix and blend right onto the page. It's fine if you start out with a solid color, just don't leave it solid. Look at how I just added some purple into that. I love the three-dimensional area that starts to look. Those colors and the mixing look phenomenal. Lastly, grab another paintbrush, a third paintbrush, just to give your flower a few highlights, areas or streaks that are just plain white. There, let's set that aside to dry. Okay, Moving into the next step, I like the way that my painting looks right now, but I thought what really makes it look nice is giving it more solid contrast or contour line, separating, defining my warm colors compared to my cold colors. So I grabbed my black oil pastel and I'm defining the edges of all of my petals and all the pencil work that I did at the very beginning of this project. I'm even using a little bit of this black just to give it a little bit of lines throughout, and again, just very lightly, a few lines coming to the outside edge. Lastly, I thought it might be kind of fun to make it look more three-dimensional. I like to put a few dots on my project just to give it more of like a painterly look, maybe a few dots of paint that fell off to the edge. I'm just doing that with a black oil pastel so I don't have to let it dry. I think it just, it's one of the things that I like to do on a lot of my pieces of artwork, and then I like to add a little bit of a frame going around the outside edge. Again, those are personal choices, up to you. I love the way this looks. Thanks for watching and happy art making.